Friday. May the 4th be with you. It's time for Progressive Washington with Rhonda Walker and Courtney Love.
Welcome to Progressive Washington. I'm Rhonda Walker.
And I'm Courtney Love.
Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate all of your time tuning in. Make sure you share this out so we can grow our audience. And also, we do like to speak with you. So please, if you have a question, type question out in big caps and go ahead and put that in the comment thread, and we will get back to you as soon as possible on that. So we were originally scheduled with Ryan McAllister, who is a shop steward of a union, working on with AFSCME. He's part of the organizations with the unions, the Coalition of Unions. He's unable to make it today, unforeseen emergencies. So we are bumping that previous schedule to probably 2 weeks from now. So stay tuned. We'll keep you informed. So we're going to start off today actually talking about this weekend. We have an amazing event here in Washington State, in Tacoma, and it is Red Berets Medicare For All is behind it. Laura Fielding is the one who's championing it. Courtney has actually been working directly on this event. So I want to bring you in and make sure that we get all the information out there. It's a big old march. It's a People's March for Medicare for All, and it's on the National Nurses Day this Sunday. So go ahead and tell us, we do have some bands, right? There was some, who's all coming that we know for sure?
There is Wickline. There is Tobias the Owl, and there is the Sugar Makers. And then we have also Hip Hop and Politics, and those are a group, they're not so much a group as they are individual artists who work together to get political messaging out. And it's very exciting to have all of these diverse musical styles involved and coming to share the time with us. And they all support Medicare for All, and it's very exciting to find artists who are putting themselves out there on the political sphere.
Right. I'm really excited. I did hear some of their music, and and we get to be able to have them in our section. So Courtney and I are heading up the speeches from candidates who support Medicare for All, and especially I-1600, which is the initiative here in Washington State that we're pushing. So we're getting that together, and in between, in some breaks, we will be having the Hip Hop and Politics, breaking up those sections, right?
Yes, I'm really excited to have musical interjections between political speaking. I don't think there will be any boring political speakers because we're all going to be on fire progressives. I don't know. I think there's a term for that. Feeling the burn. So, you know, I think it'll be lively no matter what, but it's nice to break up speeches with a little entertainment.
Right. So that's our part, but there's going to be much more to it. So it starts at 10 in the morning, people gathering around, and we're doing training to go gather, to help people gather signatures, if I'm correct, right?
There will be discussion. It'll be to gather volunteers for it, but I would hesitate to say there's going to be organized training on how to do that. But it will be about cultivating volunteers from the crowd to do the signature gathering. And so should you say, yes, I want to volunteer, we will hand you a petition in that moment, but we will continue to offer our information in partnership with what's the best way to collect signatures, what are the rules about signature gathering, and all that. It'll be included ultimately, but perhaps not presented at the event, unless we make that happen.
Well, we might do that. I guess I want to really kind of point out who's ultimately behind this. I would love to have her on sometime. Her name is Laura Fielding. She is a fiber artist, and she was really this Medicare for All, universal health care, it speaks to her deeply, and she was trying to find something she could do to help. And she saw how people mobilized for the pink cats.
Yes.
So she was wanting to do something similar to try to get the word out for Medicare for All. You have a little bit more story, I think, behind
her inspiration.
Yeah.
Oh, our very own Tambourine Borelli lit her on fire. She saw Tambourine speaking and was like, I have to do something. And so she looked at what her passions were and said, how can I combine my passion with the fire that Tambourine lit inside of me? And this is what's happened. This is the little baby, the Tambourine and Laura baby.
Oh, it is. And so it's not just, of course, Washington State, but this is a national drive for her. She wants to support Medicare for All, get behind any states, organizations, right, working on it. And she wants to help create these Red Berets for all across the nation.
That's right. Because I'm so focused on the local event, I sometimes forget that she is trying to make this a national movement. And so she's connected with people all over the country, and people are sending her Red Berets from Vermont and from Maryland, if I'm not mistaken. I won't be able to accurately name all the people, but there are some incredible artists participating in this, and people are starting to look at how they can plan their own marches for Medicare for All. And in a time of marching, there's a lot of marching going on these days, but what we see a lack of is marching for something. A lot of these marches are marching against something, and I don't want to be a wall. I want to be a barricade that we push back with. And so, yes, we can't let people move their front forward against us. So we do have to resist, but we have to insist and push back as well. And I think that's how I see this event. We are pushing back, pushing forward.
Pushing forward, right.
It is. It's pushing forward.
Pushing forward. Absolutely. And we can't stop. We just can't. And this is just starting here. So we are going to have universal health care, Medicare for All. We will.
Yeah. And I do want to give a quick shout out. Everyone planning this march is new to march planning. And we are so lucky to have been gifted the stage set up by, I believe it's Northwest Stage. They're doing a lot of their services being donated, and we know that we need to cover the costs of the labor, which is reasonable, and we want to make sure everybody's getting a living wage. So we will still be needing donations. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's links to that in the description. So yes, please give for that. So we were talking about how it's kind of getting out there. I saw Nina Turner with a red beret on, right?
Yes. Gerald Friedman
with his red beret on. I know that she sent some to Bernie Sanders and his crew as well. And I heard that they received them. Yep. We haven't seen a picture yet, but we're hopeful.
And it was intention. They did 17 berets for he and his family. It turns out that his staff that started unpacking the berets just basically started claiming them for their own. And so I think Bernie and Jane got berets. Maybe 4 people in the family got berets. And there was like a, oh, well, kind of moment, like those had intention, but the intention is still being met because people are talking about it. And somewhere in Vermont and maybe DC, there are red berets.
I love it. So just to highlight, the People's March for Medicare for All will be this weekend, this Sunday, in Tacoma. It's at Wright Park. Yes, in your neck of the woods, where she thinks everything needs to happen. It's happening. It starts at 10 a.m., but it is an all-day event. There's a lot of different things that will be going on. Family friendly. Bring everybody out. This is a very, very important matter to us, as it is to most of America. So please don't hesitate.
Right.
Come out. It'll be fun and educational.
Yeah. Music starts around 10 o'clock, and we move forward from there. And we march. I believe we will start marching at 4, which means you will spend a great amount of time in the park that day. And variations of a theme, like if you know, come when you can, so come late if you can't come on time. If you know you wear comfortable shoes, make a plan for this. You probably won't want to lug chairs on a march, so find how you need to balance your personal comfort with the scope of the day. Some people want to come to the event but don't have the personal stamina or physical ability to handle the march, and so you are of course welcome to hang out in the park during the march or end your day then. But just so you know, it's a full day and a march, so plan accordingly. And it's Tacoma, and no, I haven't checked the weather. I just assume it will change.
The weather actually looks pretty decent coming up. And we're all going to have all of our progressive candidates. I mean, it's going to be inundated with amazing people. So
yes,
don't miss out.
That's right. Be there.
Be there. All right. So we are going to actually get ready to talk with just you, Courtney. We have eye on CD9. So congressional queries. We got some great information on the sitting incumbent. And who is that again?
Adam Smith. Dun, dun, dun.
Take it away.
All right. And it's hard to say that I'm doing this on my own, because Oz, the amazing man, has done so much to help with this segment, and I really appreciate it. And I want to say that right up front. So without his research and outline, it wouldn't be nearly, well, so good as I hope it is. So Adam Smith. He is a 25-year incumbent Democrat in Washington's 9th Congressional District and is up for re-election this year. The district is densely populated and geographically small, and it stretches from Bellevue in the Mercer Island area in the north down to northeast Tacoma and the port in the south. And please note that the proposed LNG plant at the Port of Tacoma is in the 9th District, despite there being very few people so the bulk of Tacoma is not in his district, but somehow he gets our port and the LNG issue. Please hashtag thanks gerrymandering. And after the 2010 census, the district was redrawn, making it the first district in Washington to be comprised of a majority of residents who are racial or ethnic minorities. So that makes it very unique. And we look forward to someday having someone who reflects their district running. Not to say we don't have a qualified candidate to offer at the end of this segment, but identity politics aside, they are also white. So I want to start with the topics he's good at. Education. He's the bee's knees on education. Now on to what's almost good. Cannabis. He's not for it. He's not against it. Now that we're done with that, we can get on to the cattle farts. As I looked into Adam Smith and all the material that Oz sent me, I found myself going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole. But he has been a leader in moderate New Democrats organization. He serves as the chair of a political action committee which is a PAC, political action committee, of the New Democratic Coalition, moderates, all of them. He's on a humanitarian group's board that Republican Dave Reichert is also on. So he's the same Reichert who's missed more votes than any other representative. And this humanitarian group is about fighting extreme poverty. So on the surface, it sounds pretty cool, but you got weird bedfellows. And then I also think, and they're also primarily made up of people associated with big businesses. So I contend that they could do a lot for extreme poverty, especially in the United States, by paying a living wage and supporting Medicare for All. So does Adam Smith support Medicare for All? Ooh, sorry, I just used the wrong scroll button. I'll put it simply, though, I already know the answer to this. He kind of supports Medicare for All. He joined the bandwagon very late. computer's still catching up. I'm so sorry. He has recently signed on to House Resolution HR 676, the Conyers bill, but that's been out since, I believe, 2003, and he has only signed on in the last year. So I want to say that we need to see it as it is. It's a political maneuver, and we should note that Adam Smith was one of 7 total members of the House who voted against applying federal antitrust laws to health insurance companies. 7 total. That's not 7 Democrats, that's 7 total. So even the majority of Republicans voted to apply federal antitrust laws to health insurance. So what else does he reluctantly support? And I'm so tech idiot. So sorry. He reluctantly supports H.R. 1880, the College for All Act, introduced in 2015 by Representative Grayson in Florida as H.R. 4385. Adam was not a co-sponsor in 2015 when it was initially introduced. H.R. 3227, the Justice is Not for Sale Act, introduced in 2015. Adam was not an original co-sponsor. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He was an original co-sponsor in 2015, but is not in 2017. Somehow he's backsliding on that. So then we've got H.R. 1144, the Inclusive Prosperity Act of 2017, originally introduced in 2012. This bill amends the Internal Revenue Code to impose excise tax on the transfer of ownership in certain securities. He was never a co-sponsor until 2017. So that's the barely goods taken into account. Shall we move on to the not goods? His voting record. While in Congress, Representative Smith has sponsored an average of 10 bills and co-sponsored 217. He's average. Role as superdelegate. Smith was one of 17 superdelegates in Washington, and despite his constituents' overwhelming support at 73% of Senator Sanders, he used his super D vote to support Hillary Clinton. And I quote, "I don't believe that as an elected official, I simply have to bow to whatever the majority of people show up at the caucus did. Now, I do believe that it would be wrong for me to go there as a superdelegate and vote to overturn the will of the Democratic Party, but to change my endorsement based on the opinions of people. When we're talking about an independent thing here, this is not part of my role as representative of this district. It's just my role as an elected official." I'm sorry, did you just say that you don't have to bow to what the majority of people in your district say? Sorry, excuse me. On the military-industrial complex, Adam Smith's, in 2001, he voted yay on the original Patriot Act. In 2004, he was one of 4 Democrats to vote nay on changing provisions of the Patriot Act. In 2005, he voted nay on the reauthorization, and yay, so that was a year later, he flipped. 2010, he voted yay to extend sunset provisions of the Patriot Act concealed within a Medicare bill without reforms. In 2015, he voted yay on HR 2048 to restore parts of the Patriot Act that had expired. In 2015, he didn't sign on to co-sponsor legislation to repeal the Patriot Act or FISA. So I don't understand what we're voting for here. He voted nay to funding NASA, but yay to giving the military $72 billion more. So he won't support space exploration, something that might be for the good of us, but he will vote yay on expanding military budgets. So he also voted yay to provide funding to 2 separate companies to produce the same engine for a single engine plane. And he is vocally against participating in the Russian Olympics unless Russia agreed to turn over the whistleblower Edward Snowden. Sorry, it's just so hard to read this. I hope I can make it through without, having a physical response. So internet privacy? No. In both 2012 and 2013 CISPA bills, which allowed U.S. security and defense industry and private corporations to share individual private data. Thank you. Environment. Adam has not signed on to Keep It in the Ground Act or the Off Fossil Fuels for a Better Future or the 100 by 50 Act, which is achieve 100% clean and renewable energy by 2050. Nope, not helping. Now, campaign finance reform. Nearly 70% of Smith's campaign donations in the current election cycle are from political action committees, PACs. Smith rejects the notion that PAC money inherently carries more potential for undue influence than money from individuals. Sorry. Only 26% of Adams' campaign funds came from Washington State, 31% from DC, 18% from Virginia. What's going on in Virginia? Maybe military contracts or government agencies? And then some came from Maryland. I have to, check on that a little bit. So that leaves about 17% that came from the rest of the United States. The only member of Congress to get more from Northrop Grumman than Adam is Mac Thornberry, chair of the House Armed Services Committee. The Republican from Texas has received over $40,000 from Northrop. And so I mention Northrop with him because we move on. I did a tech geek, not tech geek thing, a tech incompetent thing again. I'm so sorry. So I wanted to keep Thornberry's name with Adams a little bit here because they have sponsored a bipartisan amendment that would legalize the use of propaganda on American audiences. And it is now inserted in the latest defense authorization bill. So he's okay with the government lying to us. And so you think America has a free press? Press censorship began in the 50s, and censorship and propaganda laws are now in place. That the ownership of news media is concentrated in a few hands is problematic, but recent legislation has ensured government control over American news broadcasts. The Smith-Mundt Act of 1948 prohibited the broadcast of pro-U.S. Cold War propaganda to U.S. citizens. The News Fairness Doctrine of 1949 established standards to ensure fair and truthful broadcast news reporting. In the 50s, the CIA paid American and foreign news reporters and editors to act as U.S. government mouthpieces and gatekeepers. Check out Operation Mockingbird. This program has not ended. President Reagan repealed the News Fairness Doctrine in 1987, and news reporting was now influenced by network owners. Pentagon pro-war propaganda was inserted into news broadcasts in 2002. Retired generals, analysts, and pro-war pundits were paid by the Pentagon to give objective interviews. Obama repealed the Smith-Mundt Act in 2013, permitting inclusion of State Department propaganda and ad agencies. And ad agencies were paid to produce it. Obama's National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, for 2016 included a provision to block the broadcast of news stories on mainstream media or the internet that were deemed to be anti-government propaganda. Obama's NDAA for 2017 authorized a new agency with a $96 million budget for 2017 to create pro-government propaganda targeting American citizens. So now it is legal to prohibit or censor news reports deemed to be anti-American, contrary to the American narrative, the government narrative, while creating and inserting pro-government propaganda, fake news, aimed at U.S. citizens. Americans are not told what is blocked or which news items are propaganda. We're kept in the dark on all of this. I believe that these provisions are a serious abridgment of the First Amendment rights and constitute a direct threat to American democracy. RT News broadcasts have challenged U.S. government propaganda in many areas, including our illegal aggression in Syria. The U.S. government has now responded. A flurry of anti-Russia propaganda was followed by requiring RT to register as a foreign agent. This is the first step, which I expect will be followed by blocking RT News broadcasts entirely. Quite legal under NDAA 2016. Will Al Jazeera be next? So, Adam Smith has to go. He's got so very little good. He's got a decent amount of barely good, or reticent good. And then he's got a slew of bad. So what do? We find a candidate who overlaps in his good, is enthusiastic about his somewhat goods, and has none of his bad. And that is Sarah Smith. She is running in Congressional District 9 against Adam Smith. So you're looking for Sarah Smith. And you can find her at, I believe, I'm sorry. I can't rattle her email or her website off. But you look for Sarah Smith for Congress. I'm pretty sure that's close to it. You will get Sarah Smith. You help her. You volunteer for her. You phone bank for her. You text bank. You door knock. You get out there and you get rid of this. I should really think of my insults before I get on, because I usually think of insults that are maybe a little too passionate. But we have to get rid of this person who is not representing his people, who has literally said he disregards his constituents. Sarah Smith will represent the people in her district. Sarah Smith will listen to the people in her district, and she will not go against the good of her constituents, of her state, or her nation. Support Sarah Smith.
Wow. I think you got a couple things out about him today.
And there was more.
Yeah, there's lots more. And I was looking through just some of the comments and stuff out there. And yeah, they're all ready to kick his ass out. And somebody says, you really should take a break and gargle with some stuff and get all that. Ugh. Oh, yeah, they felt that. They felt that. Yeah. Yeah, calling him on a horse's ass, you know, all that good stuff.
Thanks, viewers.
Kathy Lawton really is giving you props out there. She
Thanks,
loved
Kathy.
the full report, and she, of course, is with you 100% on how.
Yeah. No LNG in the 253.
Right. Oh, yeah. And she was saying, too, you know, she's always wary of when representatives change, especially for like Medicare for All or LNG.
Yeah, when they
She's
evolve.
wary. And she says they do need to, but she's very wary, and she'd much rather, of course, people to come out of the gate in support of these issues that most of us are behind. So
I feel like he's just gotten political permission to take the somewhat good stances that he's had, the reluctant signing on, the delayed acceptance of what people want.
right. Weren't they talking about because of where he sits, you know, and he's up for election, that they kind of talked about, and they kind of give him kudos to do that, right? You can go ahead and say you're like that for right now.
Right. Yeah.
There's
There's not any real risk in signing on to these progressive bills that he's recently signed on to, because the Democrats don't have the majority in the House or the Senate. And so he can sign on with no risk, because he doesn't actually have to vote on it, at least until we get a progressive president. And then that I can't trust him to do what's right at that point, because the people who pay him won't let it happen.
right.
His constituents, his nation will be supportive of it, but not his payroll or those who pay his payroll.
Right. Well, thank you, Courtney. I think that was
It was a pleasure, and I think it was as much of a pleasure as it was because of Oz.
Oz has been helping us gather our intel and helping us with coming up with these great, what are they, scripts, are we calling them?
It's probably the appropriate, I loosely refer to it as the rant.
Right, the rant. So thank you again, Oz. I love that you're still with us.
Yes.
All right, so I guess, well, we didn't have as long of a show today because our guest wasn't able to make it, but I think we did a good deal of a chunk's worth. We could go through some of these progressive updates before we head out.
I do want to
go ahead.
I'd recommend people making sure to reach out to Washington Berniecrats Coalition, and either through Progressive Media, if this is how you can find us most easily, but send us links to Facebook pages or website pages for other progressive candidates in your area, so that we can vet them and support them if we find them appropriate to support.
Exactly. You can also email us at WashingtonBerniecrats@gmail.com. Or if you have a show idea, something going on in your neighborhood or something that you're real passionate about, send your show ideas to ProgressiveWaMedia@gmail.com. We'd love to hear more about you and love to be able to report more on what's going on in our state.
That's right. Because we care.
Right.
And we care so much that we live in a constant state of passion and anger.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. I was telling someone recently that they were like, oh, I stay out of politics. I was like, oh, why? Do you get angry? And they're like, nah. And I was like, oh, I get angry. But I realized that while I do have anger, I think it's expressed by fiery passion with a fist in the air and solutions pouring out of my mouth. It's not impotent. It's rally. It's a rally cry.
It is. And people got to keep in mind too, ultimately though, everything is political. It doesn't mean you have to play the party politics. That's what people really kind of don't like. But everything's political. Whatever your issue is that gets you out there and fighting, politics is behind it. So we need your help. We have plans all about anti-corruption and election reform, so our voices can be heard. Sign up today.
Indeed. And send your donations to Uphill Media.
Go ahead, do your spiel.
Oh, I don't actually have the slides pulled up. I just kind of jumped in there with it. But do remember that Uphill Media is our awesome production team, and we need all the support we can get. Go to Uphill Media, find Progressive Washington, click on our show, and donate through that process, so that while it all goes to the same kitty, we get credit for filtering it to John and Uphill Media. So it costs about $27 per show to put this on, which is just when things work together so beautifully that you just know it's right. A political show that costs $27, of course.
Right.
So it is meant to be, people. Make it happen. And we need 130 Washingtonians to pay $1 a month. So be that $1. Be number 3. Be number 17. Be 100. Be 130. Be 142.
Ooh, I like that 142.
It's the answer to the universe plus 100.
I love it.
Keeping it 100.
So some upcoming events, real quick, with Dorothy Gasquet's campaign. So tonight, actually, so May 4th. So it's May the 4th be with you. This will be at, I know, it's great. There's going to be bands, live music, lots of fun at her campaign headquarters in downtown Vancouver.
Oh, and it's so awesome there.
It is way awesome there.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So yeah, it's always open for everyone to come into. So it's the most welcoming campaign office I think I've stepped foot into. So thank you, Dorothy, for providing that.
Yes.
Tyler Vega. So he's going to come. We need signatures. this is, you know, part of his district's in there. So we need signatures to get him on the ballot. We also need a fundraise if that doesn't happen to be able to pay for him to get on the ballot. Come out Sunday again, Medicare for All, May 6th in Tacoma. He will be there. So will Dorothy.
That's right.
Sarah Smith's upcoming events. So community canvassing Saturday is at 11 every Saturday. Go to her events on facebook.com/Sarah Smith WA09.
And remember, that's the candidate we need to support against Adam Smith. So it's a war of Smiths.
It is a war of Smiths. I like this Sarah Smith a lot better than our Mr. Adam Smith.
Oh, for sure. I trust Sarah Smith.
Right. I do too. That's a good thing. Robert Hunzinger. So he, go to his website. They have a lot of events up there. So different town halls with some uncorrupted candidates. Don't miss out. Him and Tambourine, right? Are the two uncorrupted candidates that are meeting up together. Yes. So it's a good time. Oh,
and them together, it's a real good time. They've got there's certainly different energies between the two of them, but it's synergistically magical.
Right. And updates, I guess, still on 1600. We're still, of course, gathering signatures. Vicky, I believe, was somebody in yes on 1600. They've been kind of watching what's been coming in. Actually, it wasn't Vicky that did this, but they try to project about how our signature gathering is going. Yeah. And there's been such an influx, like it's really kicking into gear now. And with their prediction, with just the recent, they predict that we will have all the signatures. I think they said by like May, end of May or June. But I know. So don't give up at all. We need this momentum. It's a big push, a big momentum. People are excited. We need more. Come this, come this Sunday.
Yeah. And it's a projection based on how many people we see coming in. So it is not a rest on your laurels. It is, we're counting on that projection. We need people to fulfill that projection. It's not a prophecy. It's a projection. So,
yes, we need you.
We need you.
Your neighbors and your friends and your relatives.
Yeah. And if you're like, hell yeah, I want I-1600, that means you need to have a petition and be collecting some signatures. And when you meet someone who says, hell yeah, I want I-1600, then that means you need to hand them a petition. Yes. So whenever you meet someone who is more than, yeah, I'll put my name on that. If it's even a single iota more enthusiastic than that, they need to be collecting signatures with us.
And it's been a fun thing to do. I've loved being out there asking for signatures. It is. Yeah. I don't recommend this as a put it, try this all the time kind of thing. But I asked somebody, I-1600, universal health care on the ballot, whatever my little spiel was. They said, no, I'm fine. And it just kind of came out of my mouth. I said, I'm not. And he paused and turned back to me and he said, what is that? And I said, universal health care for all on the ballot in Washington. And he goes, oh, okay. And then he signed it. So he cared that you weren't okay. See?
Yeah.
People care.
And so I don't know if that response is the winning response every time, but in that moment, it just came out of me and it worked. When people realize that this is bigger than themselves, I think they can get distracted in life. And so we just have to trip them up a little bit, remind them.
I just want to jump in there, though. It could just be he had no idea what I-1600 was. And when you rephrase it as healthcare, he's like, oh, yeah, that. So maybe,
Yeah, true.
True, but I don't think I was actually I don't usually start with I-1600. I flubbed it in this example.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
but you're right. That would not be the best introduction.
Right.
Yes on I-1600. Okay. Some math.
Yeah. No, I usually start with universal health care for all in Washington State.
Yep.
Put it on the ballot.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So in this case, I would agree. Your emotional appeal, and yeah, that worked. So good job.
It's also good to have your children with you too when you're out doing
yeah.
that. If you have any, or pets. Oh man, I'm telling you, bring your pets and your children.
And I did have my daughter with me that day.
Yeah.
So
you can get people to sign this either out of guilt or just to get you to go away.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Right.
Either one works.
Yes. And actually, but my favorite is altruism.
There you go. All right.
So, okay, this was a great show, I think, for being,
I'm sure I'll get some feedback about my reading skills. But
you did much better than I did last week. So, hey.
Yeah. And I can deal.
I'm going to yell at Oz for giving you too long a script. So we'll blame it on Oz.
Well, we knew I had time today. So
I see. All right. Well, it was a good job. What are we going out with? Let's get the hell out of here.
So I actually picked Billy Bragg. This is when we were having Ryan on. I didn't have time to choose a new one, but there is power in a union, which there is. So
there is.
And
we're all trying to build a union here, a union of people.
Yes, we are.
Good job, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank
you all for watching, sticking around, sticking with us.
Hard work on our part.
There's power in the factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in our union. Now the lessons of the past were all learned with workers' blood. Mistakes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud, war has always been the boss's way, sir. The union forever defending our rights. Down with the black legal workers unite, with our brothers and our sisters from many far-off lands. There is power in our union. Now I long for the morning that they realise brutality and unjust laws cannot defeat us. But who'll defend the workers who cannot organise when the bosses send their lackeys out to cheat us? Money speaks for money, the devil for his own. Who comes to speak for the skin and the bone? What a comfort to the widow, a light to the child. There is power in our union. Together we will stand.